Y'all ready to get rolling?
Sure.
Let's get this party started. Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are so glad you are here with us, and just by showing up today, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to feature two of the most interesting and powerful music tastemakers in the entire industry. I promise you will leave today smarter and more inspired than you arrived. Before we get started, please let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music business. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I run the music practice at Turnkey ZRG, and I place music executives in roles throughout the business. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and please make some new ones. And ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those along the way as possible. Also, please make sure your chat is set to address everyone, not just the speakers. I want to thank our sponsors, for without their support, we could not keep this free. Special thanks to First Horizon Bank, Turnkey ZRG, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, MedJet, Tennessee Brew Works, Project Music, and Cushmasters. But let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome Chris Douridas. Chris is the renowned KCRW radio host and multi-Grammy nominated music supervisor and one of the world's premier music tastemakers. His exceptional ability to spot talent and break new artists has been integral to his expansive career, beginning at one of the most respected progressive radio stations in the whole world, LA's KCRW-FM, where he served as programming director, host of Morning Becomes Eclectic. He later launched the online music channel Eclectic 24, which he still programs. Chris was an early supporter of major artists such as Maroon 5, Beck, The Cardigans, Michelle Negocello,
And Cello.
Elliott Smith, Fiona Apple, Ben Folds, Gillian Welch, Imogene Heap, and more. His weekly live music series, School Night, showcases up-and-coming talent, and countless successful artists have debuted or played early shows there, including Billie Eilish, Doja Cat, Dua Lipa, Lizzo, Black Bear, Michael Kiwanuka, Wolf Alice, Sophie Tucker, and many others. Welcome, Chris. So glad to have you.
I was wondering how long that was. It's a long list, so I didn't know if you're going to go through the entire list or.
You didn't scratch the surface of all the taste making you've been doing. And joining Chris for today's discussion is Jodie Feerneyhough. With over 3 decades of experience in the music industry, Jodie founded global independent music company CCS Rights Management over 10 years ago after heading publishing operations for both Universal Music and Pier Music. As a respected authority and leader, he's currently on the board of numerous international organizations, including SOCAN, ICMP, and MPC, where he previously served as vice chairman and president for 13 years. Jodie also sits on the steering committee of CMRRA. CCS, his company, has experienced continuous growth and expanded its international reach and services for a roster of award-winning and up-and-coming songwriters, artists, musicians, producers, labels, corporate brands, and other rights holders. With a focus on putting artists and songwriters first, the company maximizes income, develops and nurtures talent, and provides creative opportunities that impact. It manages more than 150,000 copyrights and specializes in publishing administration, royalty collections, creative services, neighboring rights management, and licensing for film, TV, advertising, games, and more. CCS partners with major international production companies, studios, music libraries, and brands to monetize catalogs, maximize value, and administer rights worldwide for productions airing in 190 countries. In 2021, the company launched Daytripper Music Publishing, a new division dedicated to development and support of artists, songwriters, while enhancing, capitalizing, and promoting all their works. Gentlemen, those are 2 exhaustive introductions, and I am thrilled to have you. Please take it away.
Good God. Jodie, how do you even have time to be here for this thing? The way that resume read, you don't have any time.
Yeah, well, it doesn't sound like you have much either. And working with you. I know that that you don't have much time.
That's
Okay.
true. We have been working together in recent years, and we could talk about that. It's really good to see you. Thank you, Tom, for having us.
Yes, Tom. Thank you so much.
uh, I should say at the start of this, I'm in New York City right now. I'm not at my house. I'm at a friend's house. So I just happen to be in New York City this week. And Jody, where are you?
I'm
Somebody else's office, obviously, because I
no,
see gold records.
this is my office. We moved offices, and uh, you know, I partly did this because, as you'll recall, Chris, we had a horrible meeting one time with an artist rep, and it just was horrible. And so I thought, well, you know what? From now on, I'm going to have these behind me, just say, hey, look, I actually did something. So,
Yeah, we should explain a little more. We were actually talking to the
lawyer.
lawyer of an artist that we were trying to talk through a possible publishing relationship, and the lawyer didn't seem to.
Like very much about either of us, frankly.
Yeah, it was not a very positive conversation.
Quite not
And
positive.
so now Jody's like, I gotta bring the big dick energy to the
Yeah,
room.
right.
Let's get the gold records. Yeah,
Gold records out. Ah, there
some
you go. So,
stacks of cash nearby or something like that you could
yeah,
point to.
yeah. So I have a question for you right off the top. Why?
For me?
Yeah, you.
Okay.
You're not just in New York. Why are you in New York?
Oh, that's a tee up. That's a tee up. God, I've done so many different things over the years, right? Radio, music supervision, working with you and record company, and I just, for the first time ever in 30 years in music, started managing an artist.
Nice.
A year ago, I met an artist who just blew my mind, and I long story short, I heard this voice. I went tracking down her music. There was not much. I found her online. I reached out to her, and I reached her at work, where she was a public defender in Rochester, New York, who had just gotten out of court. And I was like, wait, are you working on music? And she's like, yeah, I've got some demos. And she sent me the demos, and I flipped out. Her name's Danielle Ponder. And that was a year ago. I partnered up with Tom Windish, who most of you probably know as a fabulous booking agent, booking Billie Eilish and Lorde and Alt J and the rest of them. Tom and I managed her together, and we put together a team with Carla Sachs, PR, and we got her on Seth Meyers last night. A year into working with her, she had her national TV debut at Seth Meyers, and that's why I'm in New York. And you can watch it online. You Google it on YouTube.
And I found it this morning. It was a really great performance. She is. I agree, Chris. She's amazing. And so trying to talk to her lawyer right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, look at Lisa Mason. Hey, does she have a publishing deal yet? Actually,
well,
no.
I'm trying.
Yeah, she does. She does not. She does not have a publishing deal. We did a deal for this first album with Future Classic. It's a one-off, just to sort of get her feet wet in understanding how the music business works. We didn't want to put anything too heavy on her, that ties her down for too long. So we've got a one-off with Future Classic, and she's free on the publishing side, and we're just taking a day at a time. But man, people are coming to the table. she's got one song out. Her new song is out Friday, so Friday she'll have 2 songs out from this forthcoming album. So Danielle Ponder, yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you, and thank you for calling that out, because I am sitting on a lot of excitement right now. You trying to be chill and cool, but I'm just so elated right now. I'm so excited. So Jody, yeah, I want to just talk about how you and I first came together to be spending so much time together these days, because you're in Toronto, I'm in Los Angeles. How we came together, for me, is a bit of a beautiful story, and it came out of just passion for music, because I met you at school night.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, yes, I live in Toronto. It's where I raised my family and all of that. But we always just consider ourselves an international company. We spend probably more time in Los Angeles and Europe than I do even in Toronto. So we're always, connecting with people and making deals and whatnot. as you said, we were at school night one night, and my creative director and I were there, and he said, "What do you think if we went to Douridas and see if he'd do a deal with us?"
That's an amazing Jordan Howard impression.
Right?
That's yeah.
So
Take that on the road.
You know what's he gonna say? No. So we went over to you, and I believe he went over to you first and had a conversation, and then we had small conversations, and then it was really about music and how to, you know, really work with some great artists and fine artists, and you had the perfect alibi, if you will, and the perfect way to do it through school night, through the music supervising stuff. Like
alibi.
You know, what better way to you know, really find some great young talent than with a guy who's getting fed great young talent all the time? And how can we bring value to us, to you, and to the artist, and to our delight? You said yes, and there we are.
You know, it seemed like a really good affinity there. I obviously, being in LA, working at KCRW, still doing a radio show there, and doing school night, I'm always combing through what's new, what's up and coming, and what's kind of turning me on musically. And so often those artists are unsigned. They're, you know, they might even be with like Daniel Ponder with 1 or 2 songs out, or not even songs out yet, because we put them up on school night and they're still working on their first album. So it's a good early look where I can see a lot of things early on, and you know, it's great to have a place to take things, you know, on the publishing side with you guys. So you know, obviously you can't sign everything.
No, I mean, we'd love to, you know, but it's, you know, we're limited. You know, I have an independent company. It's fully backed by me. You know, there's no investors, there's no whatever. So we have to be very careful with what we sign and how we sign, and kinds of money that we spend. You know, we're not competing against the big companies and whatnot. We're here to find and nurture and develop and grow great artists to that superstar part of their lives, and hopefully, you know, we all just grow together.
Hey, there's Larry Butler. Hey, Larry. Oh, you're very kind. Nice to see you too. You know, it's so just before we leave that, if I get excited about an artist that I see at school night or that I'm playing on my radio show, and I bring it to Daytripper, your company, and you guys are like, this is great, but you know, it's not right for us for whatever reason, I could take it somewhere else, right? I could just, you know, at that point I can go shop it to other people.
Yeah. You know, it may be just
like
not
Lisa Macy or
and Jordan's voice is much higher than that.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. You know, not all of it's going to be something that we like, or that we can even maybe handle. If it's, you know, a multi-million-dollar advance, I can't do that. You know, so why wouldn't, you know, if you're able to do that and go and build that person's career, then great. It you know, it's always going to come back to us.
Yeah.
You know, and the joint venture just continues to get stronger, I think.
You know, we'll come back to CCS, but I want to just dig in a little bit about you, because, you know, I want to go back to little Jodie. You know, I want to go back to where were you born?
I was born in a place called Welland, Ontario.
Where is that? I'm guessing it's north.
It's just outside of Niagara Falls, just outside of Buffalo.
Oh, so it's right by the border.
Yeah, it's right by the border. So I grew up in a basically playing in a farmer's field, and digging forts underground and playing with gasoline and fire. It was all, you know, very, it was an interesting childhood, and interesting young years, because at the time you could drink in Buffalo and Niagara Falls when you're 15, 16. So we used to drive over the border and do that for years on end. So I have an affinity to the upstate New York folks.
Wow. And coming up, like the first time, can you look back on the first time that a piece of music passed through your ears and shook you? Like, when did the power of music first become front and center for you? When did you first realize the power of music?
Yeah, I don't even know when I first realized it. I think probably from my dad, to be honest.
Is he a musician?
No, he wasn't a musician. He really didn't have anything much to do with music, but he liked something, and he would play those things.
Like what?
Cat Stevens was a big one. Charlie Pride, this is the other one. A couple more. Johnny Cash, of course. And he used to play those. Those were his records, and I liked it. I liked the sound of it. I liked the music, and then when we were youngish, we'd go to a park down by Niagara Falls, and at the time, you could drink and drive, and the parents would put you in the back of the station wagon, 12 of you, and they'd go down and have a big party all day long. And CCR was a big part of my childhood, from what I remember. I always really liked that band, and then it just continued to grow, and it's always sort of been a part of me.
Yeah, I mean, great songs. Every one of those artists you mentioned, at the core of it, are just really great songs, right?
Yeah.
So those were Dad's heroes. Who was your first hero? Who was the first one that you felt? Every kid's got the one that they feel is their own.
Yeah. I mean, it still is to this day, and has been for I don't know how long. I mean, there's been others that have come up and spiked and stay there in my world. Paul McCartney, a couple of other ones, but the one that really lives with me is David Bowie.
Bowie.
Yeah.
And what is it about Bowie? Can you put?
It just was everything. It was the mystique about him. It was his music. It was the changing persona, the sounds. Scary Monsters and Lodger are two of my favorite records. And Lodger in particular, I remember I was fairly young, like 14, 15, I can't remember. And Lodger came out and it had weird sounds and weird noises, and Bowie in a dress, and it had I Am a DJ, and it had a bunch of others, Red Sails, and just spectacular records. And then you jump over to the other one, which is Low, and that is just haunting and brooding, and I just loved all the changes.
Yeah.
Throughout time.
I love the Low, the Eno Bowie, the Brian Eno, David Bowie collaborations, and
then when you read any of the Bowie books, Low in particular is when him and Angie were fighting, and he was just talking about don't look at the floor, I threw something awful on it, and he did. He was so it was really quite interesting.
Wow. Lisa Macy says in the chat, your parents are really your first music supervisors, providing music choices for you that become the soundtrack of your life as a kid, right?
Yes, Captain Plager, I agree. It is a hidden gem.
Can I tell a Bowie story?
Sure.
I worked on, the Shrek films as a music supervisor, and consulted on the first one, but the second one I really feel like was like my thumbprint, But when Shrek 2 was coming together, the filmmakers, Andrew Adamson, had put changes in, in the sketch of the film, where it was still pencil drawings, and it was the original changes from Bowie, and there's this sort of animated sheen to the music in Shrek and the Shrek films, and as we were working with the Bowie song in there, it felt a little dated, sonically, and I just had it in my mind, like, let's try to get a cover of it. Let's try to refresh it. I knew it was a tall order. I knew it was probably not going to happen, but why not try?
Yeah, why not? Huh?
Why not try? And Mike Dixon, who I adore, who's in Nashville, and well, very rarely in Nashville when it's not a pandemic. He's all over the world, but he had passed through LA around that time, and I met him for dinner, and he gave me the demos of a new artist he was working with, Butterfly Boucher. And I got out to the car, and I was on my way home, and I was listening to Butterfly Boucher, and I was like, this is great, and I called Butterfly, and I was like asking her if she wanted to write a song for Shrek, and we were talking about it, and I was like, you know what? You want to try doing a cover of Bowie's Changes? I mean, I knew it was a lark, right? But she's like, sure. And she goes off with Brad Wood, and they 2 weeks later turn in this cover of Bowie's Changes, and it's just Technicolor, beautiful cover of Changes. And we dropped it in the movie, and it worked really well. And we're like, okay, now let's go see if Bowie's okay with it. Yeah, so right. I sent it to Bowie's manager. This was over Christmas break, 2003. And I think that's right. Anyway, he sends it off to Bowie, who's down in Goldeneye in Jamaica having a vacation. And right after the Christmas holiday, I get a message back from the manager. And he goes, well, I got two things. And I was like, okay. He goes, one, David loves it. I was like, great. And he goes, there's one thing though. And I was like, what? And he goes, do you think Butterfly would be okay if David joins her on the track? It's like, I'm sure she would. I said, let me find out. And I called Butterfly. And when I told her, I'd never heard a girl scream so loud in my life on the other end of the phone. Long story short, we sent the masters to David, and he sent it back. And there he was doing, a duet with Butterfly Boucher on there. And that's how it turned out. And he's in the movie and is on the soundtrack. And yeah, so he wanted to be relevant to kids, So he wanted to be part of that Shrek thing. Anyway.
Which is really smart, I remember there was an interview with him, and they asked what he thought about Nirvana covering his song. He said, well, they all know who I am. I don't need that. And I thought, well, that was kind of arrogant because, we all need it. Bands get old and kids don't know everything about music anymore. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Pull that statement back pretty good.
So first concert, man, what was the first concert?
Yeah. The first concert was in the Welland Arena. And you've never heard of either of these bands. One was called Moxie, and the other one was called The Battered Wives. And that didn't last long. That's
the name of the band? Was it a metal band or something?
Yeah, they were both metal bands.
Oh, okay.
And they were forced to change their names for obvious reasons. But that was the first one. My cousin took me to that. I remember I was like, oh my God. I was probably, 13 or something like that.
Funny. My first concert, I was 13 as well. And it was the Bayfront Auditorium in Corpus Christi, Texas, where I was finishing high school. And it was Styx. And,
God.
The Grand Illusion Tour. And I got really high while Legs Diamond was opening up the show. And I just remember the Grand Illusion. Welcome to the Grand. It's like the beginning of the concert, and that's the last thing I remember. And then I woke up asleep underneath the chairs, and there's like a janitor going by with a mop, broom, sweeping up. I was the only one in the auditorium besides the janitor, and I got up. I had slept through the entire concert. I missed the entire thing. So I guess it technically wasn't my first concert, but
I guess not.
It was my first attempt.
Your first attempt at a concert. Huh?
First attempt.
Fair enough.
Where's the first? I don't see anybody in the chat saying their first. No, Josephine.
Yeah.
Grand Illusion, also her first concert.
Special, nice.
Rebecca, 38 special. Hold on, lose that. Wasn't that them? No.
I don't know.
Adam and NXS. Nice. Wow, cool. Lisa, that's
Adam's
a cool
still
one.
playing, by the way.
Why would he not be? Okay. Mine was Garbage. I think that's the band Garbage. Yes, Glasgow. Wow, cool. Lemon Spoonful. That is super cool. Yeah.
That is very cool. Oh, the Ramones. Never saw Donovan. That's good. I worked with Donovan for a little while. When it was,
wow. Wait.
Not directly. I mean, it was indirect, but through Pier Music, the music publishing company, he's been with Pier for, I think, his whole career, or most of his career, if not. And so I got to work with him a little bit.
Wow. Alan.
Ray Charles. Oh, I am.
Paul and Mary. Alan Warwick. Yeah. Good God. I have. Wow. That's incredible. That everybody went to these really cool shows when they were kids, or did they only go to first concerts when they were like much older? Because that's Public Enemy. It's freaking cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Golly. How about first album, Joe? Like the first album you bought or
First album was Wings Over America. And
all the hits.
All the hits. It's a great record. I put it on not too long ago, and I forgot that the album I actually have has a scratch, and I went, "Oh yeah, I remember that skip." But yeah, it's still a fun record.
Wow, Norwood, Elton John was first concert in 1970. God, I'm so freaking jealous.
Oh, Mary Aerosmith. Oh, nice one, Tom.
My first album was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road because I was a big Elton John fan, and I was such a fan. And I don't know, how old was I? I guess it was like 10 or 11. And when it first came out, and I was so smitten with Elton John, and I tried to write him a letter, and I didn't get further than Dear Mr. John, because I was such a fan that I knew Elton John wasn't his real name. I knew it was Reginald Dwight. So then I was like, should I say Dear Mr. Dwight? Dear Reginald? Dear Elton sounds too familiar. Dear Mr. John. And I thought, okay, I'll come back to it. And I never did. I kept seeing that piece of paper on my desk in my bedroom for a long time. And
wow.
And then, yeah,
great.
Never got a letter to him. But
never got him. Yeah, I bought all those typical records, the Elton Johns and all that. As you do that time.
Yes. So being a fan of music is one thing, but then embarking on a career in music is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you go from bumfuck Canada, by the border there, and take steps to be in the big city and get into music? Did you go to college? Did you study music?
No.
There's no
I
business
didn't want
music.
a job. I never wanted a job, so I thought I'll go into music and somehow that'll work out. That's not the best advice to give the kids. And I just got in. I worked at as a kid. I worked in the grocery store stocking shelves. So
I did that.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So I got myself a job at a distribution company stocking shelves. It was records and CDs. And
no shit.
Yeah, so I did that for, I don't know.
That's the music business.
That's it. I was in the music business.
Were you using that to get laid? Were you like, hey, I work in the music business? And you're like, oh, wow, what do you do?
Married by then.
I put records out, and then it makes it sound like, yeah, I put records out. You don't have to say on the shelf.
Yeah, exactly.
You can say.
So yeah, that happened, and then I was managing a bunch of bands because I didn't know what else to do, and I was just, I was really trying just to break into the industry, and then I started booking Canadian Music Week, which is a big music conference here in Toronto, and I started doing that, and then at the time the CMJ in New York was a big thing. College Media Journal and college radio at the time really meant something, and was breaking bands and getting bands livings and all that kind of stuff. So I approached them and I became the Canadian liaison for the CMJ, which was really cool. We'd bring all the bands down, and we'd bring their gear down, and I learned how to be a border crossing maniac. I knew all the ins and outs of getting the proper paperwork and all that. And so I did that for a bit, and for a few years. And then I had a band signed to said Pier Music, and I was lucky enough to be offered the creative manager position. And managing bands is a thankless and payless job. So
yes. Thanks for telling me that. Now, as I just embarked on management a year ago.
Right. And so I took the job at Pier Music, and then, I've been at publishing now for 28 years or something like that.
So when you got to Pier, there must have been eye-opening, because you're now inside looking out. And, what about Pier gave you the, I don't know, the oh my God, the holy shit vibe that, wow, I'm in my place and this is actually kind of cool. that made you kind of hang in there, you know? Because I guess it was
It was,
somewhat.
it's still the first year or two, it was more shock. I was just like, oh my God, somebody's paying me to listen to music and to take people out on an expense account, because I'd never had an expense account before. And it was like, ooh. And, so the first couple of years was a bit of a shock. And then once it settled into it, it kind of, really started to understand a little bit more. And then 4 or 5 years into that, the job at Universal Publishing came up, and those jobs typically don't change, and especially in Canada. You could stay in that position.
Wow.
So I thought, you know what? I love being here at Pure Music, but it's Universal. It's a bigger name, title, all that stuff. So I jumped over there, and that's really when I got into being a publisher. I knew the groundwork at Pure Music, but then there's just such a different beast being in a big company like that. That it was a real education, and then I was very excited about. I always was, but a different excitement I get being there.
Well, so at when you got the job at Universal, what exactly was your day-to-day, your first day-to-day thing at Universal? And coming into I guess it was a larger company, or at least more of a global brand, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your initial day-to-day there?
Much like any creative guy in the business, signing bands. At the time, we still went out every single night to see bands. You didn't have the craziness of how many TikTok followers do they have. You didn't care. You cared. Hey, is the music?
Wait, so TikTok wasn't big back then?
No, it wasn't big back then.
Oh, okay.
You cared about the music. You cared about what they did on stage. You cared about how many kids were in the room. You cared about,
You're acting like that's not a thing anymore. Like people don't care about that now.
Well, they do, but let's face it, a lot of music is found via how many TikToks, how many Spotify, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
How many TikTok influencers have record deals. And it's like, okay, but what do they really do?
Yeah, but you don't, that's not how you operate. There are people that operate in the music business that still, I didn't see Danielle Ponder on TikTok,
No.
So
we don't deal that way. We deal the same way that we deal with you. One of our partners in Europe, we did a deal with that company because we went to a festival called Reeperbahn. We had never met this young man before, and we sat down, and I think we said hello and said, here's what we're working on. And he said, here's what I'm working on. And we did a deal that afternoon because it was about music. It wasn't about how many followers they had or whatever. It was about that he had really great taste in music. He felt that we had good taste in music. We felt that we could work together, and that's how we built that relationship. And that's the way it used to work all the time at the record companies and at the publishing companies. You went out and fell in love with a band, not with the number of TikToks they had.
Right. So, like, what were your high water marks at Universal? What do you want to point to as sort of, what you left there with?
Yeah. Well, I left there with Mars Bonfire's Undying Blessing. And that was really, really cool. For those of you who don't know, Mars Bonfire is the man who wrote Born to Be Wild. And that song probably is still one of the top 25 earners at Universal Publishing.
Really?
Yeah.
Top 25?
Top 25. The day I left, it was in the top 25. The day I left, and it's probably still there.
Why do you say that's probably still up there?
It's used all over the place. There is a brand new... Yeah, there's a brand new baby commercial here in Canada that just used it now.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, it's incredible.
A song, what is it, 50 years old?
100 songs, but that was the only one that ever really worked. And I finally was able to meet him and spent the weekend with him, and almost got him up on stage to play the song. And then he just went, no, I can't do it. Damn it. And so when I left, I emailed him and I said, hey, Mars, thank you. I'm leaving. The company has decided I don't want to be part of this job anymore, so I've got to go. Thank you for working with me. And he thanked me and said, thank you for taking care of my song. It means a lot to me. So that's probably my biggest takeaway.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I know you took that confidence and that knowledge and that experience and decided to take a big freaking leap. I mean, the idea of starting your own company and leaving behind the safety and security and cushiness and, expense accounts that come with being at a Universal or something, that doesn't come easy.
No.
How does a guy who basically, is among the top people in the world of publishing in Canada, if not, top 1% in Canada, leave that behind for the starving artist, essentially, move of starting your own company? How the hell, how did you take that leap?
As I said, I was kind of forced into it. And so I tried to get out, to be frank. I wanted to be done with the whole thing. I was kind of disillusioned. The last couple of years there were very much about just finding pieces of music off Billboard and chasing things that just didn't excite me. So I was coming to a closure.
It felt like a job. It felt like a job.
It was very much a job, and it was time to move on. But, I wasn't really ready to leave the job. So when they decided I did want to leave the job, I had to do something. And so
they decided you didn't want to leave. You wanted to leave the job.
Yeah, they decided I didn't.
Okay.
That was all their choice. So I was going to move on and go do something else. I had applied for some jobs in the US and whatnot. And the music industry was in the shits. It was 2011, 2010, 2011. We were at the bottom of the barrel, Apple had just started on a download world. All the rest didn't exist. Napster was here and everybody was stealing music, and the recording industry was suing people and suing their own consumers and customers. And it was just shitty. It was a shitty time. I thought, hey, it's a good time to start a company. So I jumped in. And I started it, and I called it CCS Rights Management, mostly to be able to kind of be where we're at today. And the whole thought and theory was that I have music publishing background, and that's like an administrative and a creative background, when right brain, left brain kind of ideas. But it was about making sure that artists and dead artists and legacy artists and historical artists were getting paid. And they were getting paid everything. So we have obviously a publishing division, but we also have a neighboring rights division, which is collecting from both sides and for the performer and the writer. We're looking into management in the next little while. There's a couple of other projects on the go, and so it was always to build a full encompassing company, not just a very narrow music publishing company. And that's where the company has sort of grown to now. And the other reason I actually started it was in case I started a business. Again, I wasn't going to, I needed to register. And for those who are from America, in Canada, we have very good funding systems for both the artists and for companies. And in order for me to be able to get any of that money to help support the company, because I started it with mortgaging my house and with no investor. That money does help, obviously, but I had to be incorporated for 2 years. So that's kind of why it all started and where we're at.
Well, I want to flesh out a little bit about the start of CCS Rights Management. Not only is it a name that just rolls off your tongue, CCS Rights Management, but this maybe it was my timing. I don't know. CCS. I like the CCS part because that says you're a dad. Can you explain the CCS part?
Yeah, it's my kids' names. Again, I wasn't going to start a company, so I was like, nobody will ever see it anyway, so it doesn't matter. Well, what's my kids' names? And and then that was it. It's Casey, Claire, and Sydney. And somebody said I should just call it that and act more like a law firm, But that name has worked for us to a certain degree. It's become sort of synonymous with sort of background, admin, neighboring rights, retransmission,
All the sexy stuff.
all the sexy stuff, right?
Yeah.
All just the whatever. It's become an important company in the production world. So we deal a lot with production companies that own and control music in TV
Yeah.
shows. So that's where that one really sort of sits and is become this real great base of administration and whatnot. One of the shows that you all know that we handle is a TV show called Paw Patrol. And it's one of the biggest TV shows on the planet. And you know, that really helps us go and find other opportunities, and it's great.
Right. So the Paw Patrol, the money that's coming in from Paw Patrol, that's allowing you to, it's giving you the wherewithal to maybe go take a chance on a developing artist, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So you're a bit of a wildcatter, you know,
Yeah.
like you're drilling for oil, you know.
Yeah, it's going for a while.
Is that
So
fair to say?
with that, you know, we decided that we needed something a little bit sexier than CCS Rights Management, and we wanted to give home to some of the new artists that we were signing and developing and growing, and you know, give home to the ones that you and I are doing joint ventures with and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
we started a company called Daytripper Music Publishing. It's
It's
basically
like a year old, right?
It's a year old. To be a year old, I think, in July-ish. You know, and we started that just to give a home and a real presence and a creative direction for our writers.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody in the chat's heard about Daytripper, but it is a great name. I agree with you, Tom. It's a great name, even if you don't know why, what it means for the company. But then when you find out what it means and why Jodie picked it, I think it's an even better name. So, Jodie, why Daytripper?
I'm looking at this comment. Mark Kane Music Publishing was named after the owner's dogs. That's awesome.
Wow.
The company came because of the CCS, really, and the family part of it, that it was a family name. We always, as staff, feel very much like a family. We always try to bring in our writers and have them as part of the family. So, you know, it was like, okay, what can we do? And we kicked around a name. 2 years, I think, we kicked around names. And finally, near the end, sadly, my sister was diagnosed with ALS, and I wanted to honor her somehow. So we went through a bunch of names. She was born in January, so we were gonna call it Capricorn Song, something along those lines. But there was a Capricorn
Records
record years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and they had coined, you know, a musical term, and we didn't want to be sort of caught in that. Oh, isn't that whatever, right?
Yeah, it could have been a restart of that or something. Yeah, you don't
Yeah,
want that
right.
association.
So we kept digging, and Jordan, my creative director, and I were just like, when was she born? What was going on? You know, all that. So she was born January 18th, 1966. And so we started looking at that and whatever, and then going back to family and music and blah, blah. Well, the number one song on the day she was born was Daytripper. So that's where it comes from.
The number one song, the day your sister was born, was Daytripper. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. And
so I was able to tell her that before she had passed.
Yeah, and when you told me that, it made me all the more proud to be working with you on Daytripper and helping you on the A&R front. I mean, I think it says a lot about your love for your sister, but your love for your family, and you know, your love for what you do every day. I think it's a beautiful thing. You know, I think we should surface some of the challenges that you might be facing as an indie publisher. You know, you are in some ways competing for the same artists that some of these bigger companies are going out to try to work with too. And how do you compete with a Cobalt or even like larger indies even, you know, but certainly the Warner Chappells and the Sony ATVs of the world and Universals and stuff. How does Daytripper compete with that?
Well, it's really hard. So we really kind of don't. You know, they're going to be in a lane that they're going to be in a lane in, and we're going to be in a lane. What we're trying to do is just find the greatest talent that we can and grow it to a stardom stage, you know, and grow it to a point where we're not competing financially, but we're competing musically to get on the radio or to get plays or to get whatever we need to do. And that's the only way that we can win, unless, and I'm not convinced I want to sell my company, you know, to a bunch of shareholders. We like what we do. We are inspired daily by the people that we work with. We're inspired by the growth of our artists. We're inspired by the very growth of our company. You know, to do a deal with you, Chris, was, you know, it was like, wow, that's magic. Look, we've actually been able to do that. I can't believe that somebody else didn't come by and do this with you. And so we were competing, and you know, we were able to strike a relationship. This is what we think we're going to continue to be able to do, is strike relationships with people, build a great roster, continue to build a reputation. And then I don't have to compete, and I don't want to compete.
Not every artist wants a big company. Not every artist wants to be on a giant roster. The money can be appealing, but again, it's a loan, right? It's an advance. It's not, you know. So so there is a plus, I think. You know, here I go trying to help you answer the question, because it is an interesting question for a smaller publisher. You know, you can be more nimble. You can be more hands-on and one-on-one, and the roster is smaller, and there's more personal attention, and there's, you know, more nurturing and developing, and you can kind of be a lot more you can move quicker, you know, and
we can move quicker, and we can be selective. You know, we're signing bands from all over the world. We've signed a band from Sweden. We've signed with you, obviously, 3 bands out of the United States. We have a small roster here of maybe 8 or 9 folks. And, you know, we're looking now at maybe 1 or 2 new signings a year, and just really developing, nurturing, growing, just great talent.
Mark Sampson's talking about a 23-year-old LA-based artist, Jack Sampson, inspired by Rundgren, Wonder, Nielsen, Prince. Well, you had me at Nielsen, even though it was the 3rd name. I'm a big Harry Nielsen fan. Definitely gonna have a check that out.
Let's check out Jack Sampson.
Yeah, we'll definitely check that out. So yeah, so I know this is flying by. I can't believe we're already, like, it flies by, Tom. I haven't even gotten to the part where I want to ask Jodie about his sex life and about no, I'm not going to go there. Let's see, days of So how do you? Maybe you don't want to, but how do you make publishing sexier? It's so funny because Danielle, who I started managing last year, Danielle Ponder, she's been in the music business. She's been, you know, a Rochester fixture for years and years, playing shows, making records, all that. She doesn't know shit about publishing. She's the first to say so. You know?
Yeah.
It's like she didn't even really. She still is having trouble kind of getting her head around it and understanding it. You know? I feel like in some ways that's publishing's biggest challenge, is conveying and to artists, you know, how publishing works and why they might want to have a relationship with a publisher. Because so many artists are like, why do I need a publisher? You know, is it just for sync? It's not just for sync. You know, you're good about finding pennies. You know, you're good about finding money on the table. You know, so how do you make that pitch sexy?
Well, it's getting a little bit easier. Years ago when I started, you know, publishers really, for the most part, especially when in something like a Universal, whatever, were sort of the last people in, right? They would, you know, nobody wanted to do a deal. Don't give up your publishing, all that kind of stuff. And at the time, frankly, we collected mechanical income from the record companies. We collected performance from ASCAP, BMI, etc. And then once in a while, if you're really lucky, a band would say, yes, you can put my music into sync. You know, how the world has changed. You know, now music publishers are very often the very first people in. The record companies are very often the last people in. You know, we had an artist that we took down to LA a couple of years ago, and the guy said, "This is great. This is amazing. What do you want me to do with it?" And we said, "Well, we want you to sign it." And he said, "No, you get it to about here, and then I'll lift it the rest of the way." And it's like, holy shit, you know. So it's gotten more difficult to be a publisher because we get the smaller amounts of money from all the services and all that, but we still have to do all the work to get people there. So people are now seeing us as a partner, and they're seeing us as a build and a bridge and a growth, that we can bring, you know, the sexy back. You know, yes, we do talk about the pennies and doing all that. We talk about sync because that's all, you know, from before when nobody would do sync to all the way to today, when that's all they want to talk about is sync. You know, we have to temper that. We have to explain to people how it works, and that, you know, our real job and this is boring to them, but is advocacy, and is to be able to make sure that you are being paid by Spotify, that you are getting money from Hulu or whoever else is using money. And there's so many people using music that our job is to try and go and find all those. And then the second half of that is to find you work, find you co-writes, find you sync, find you a record company, find you an agent, find you a manager. So we are in early. We work for nothing, because if you're not making money, I'm not making up money.
Right.
And so it's, you know, we are your early partner is really how we play it.
I got a couple questions I want to get to before we get to what I want to talk to you here to wrap things up. Jodie, says Kevin Klager, what do you think of the current frenzy of companies like Hipgnosis and even venture capital firms coming in and buying all those A-lister song catalogs? Is the bubble about to burst? Huh?
The bane of my existence. I'm not a big fan. I mean, I'm understanding why they're doing it and why some of the artists want to do it. You know, I mean, it's a lot of money. They're coming to the end of their careers, all those kinds of things. I don't, you know, they're buying copyrights. They're not developing. They're not enhancing. They're collecting copyrights to pay off some people who invested in them. They're looking for return, and they're not looking for a growth of an industry. You know, my job is to continue to grow and to continue to expand the use of music. I'm not against buying catalogs. I'd love to buy a couple of catalogs myself, but I don't want to buy them to collect something. I want to buy them to enhance them, grow them, to keep the name alive, to get it out there. That's kind of where I'd like to be.
I didn't know this. Justin Timberlake sold his to Hipgnosis today for $100 million.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, Kevin's saying, hey, won't that collapse? You know, those are so overvalued, is what he's saying.
It might, Kevin. It might. You know, I mean, had an argument with a friend of mine the other day about it. He said, "Oh, Bruce Springsteen, you know, they're never going to make their $500 million back." At moment, Bruce brings in and reported about $18 million in combined publishing record label a year. You know, so you do the math on that, and
take a
number of years. But is he a declining prospect? If we go back to Born to Be Wild, and you know the lots of money that he was being paid, and still one of the top earning artists.
But there's other things that make it attractive to some artists. There might be an artist who's like a huge Springsteen fan. He wants to be on the same part of the same roster that Springsteen's on. You know. Yeah, but so they might use it to attract.
You could, but it was Sony that bought it. Sony who owned it in the first place. So.
Right. No, I mean, like, you know, if I don't know, Justin Timberlake's going to sell his Kelly, you might want to decide to sell.
Right. Well, and you know, but there's a million ways to skin that cat, right? Yeah. Justin might have sold his catalog up until today, and then tomorrow it's all brand new catalog.
Sure.
And he's young enough to be able to continue being relevant and put music out and be wanted by the general public. So get your $100 million for the past catalog, so you don't own it anymore.
Jerry Lembo is saying, Jodie, are Are you providing an advance to all your signings? If so, what would be the average advance?
Yeah, yeah. How long's a piece of string? Yes, we do advances, but it really does depend on where the artist is in their career,
Yeah.
what they demand. You know, we're looking at a couple of artists right now that we're going to put in a substantial amount of money, and probably lose.
There's not an average, really.
And
Right?
there's no average. You know, it could be anywhere from literally nothing to a few $100,000 and everything in between.
Yeah. Jay, there was a question here from Jay, and I don't know if we fully answered it, but Jay was asking about what you're looking for in artists you bring to Daytripper, Jay Riley. Do it fast though, because I want to ask you something.
Yeah, we just really look for what we're passionate about and drives us. We're agnostic, musically agnostic. We have everything from pop to urban to rap to country. We have polka music. So we have a bunch of everything. Because unlike a label, you know, we work in so many worlds, and you know, someone like Chris calls and says, "Hey, I need a polka song," and I say I only do punk rock. Well, you know, he's not going to come back to me in the future. So we have a diversity of music.
Yeah. I want to congratulate you on Hill Karkudis winning Engineer of the Year award and the Junos. You know, we didn't even talk about Unison. We talked earlier about how big of a heart you have. It's one of the things I love about you. One of the reasons I was really proud to be working with you. I love your big-hearted approach you do in music. The fact that you started Unison, which is the Music Cares of Canada, for those in the chat that are U.S. based. Unison, you started with Catherine Sachs, and that's about, you know, not just helping musicians that might be on the ropes financially with some medical concerns, but also people behind the scenes, roadies, and people in the industry that aren't necessarily on stage. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I love you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been incredible growth. You know, we started it 13 years ago, and I am not part of it anymore because of the rules of the board, whatnot. But you know, it's helped out thousands and thousands of people, and obviously, as you can imagine, it helped out during the plague, and continues to help. And as a matter of fact, they just got a donation of $16 million to be doled out in a year's time. I don't know how they're going to do it, but yeah, they're doing very well, and I'm really proud of that organization.
You established it early on. You're a dad. I'm a dad. We're both parents, and we're both, you know, a little shook this week by what we've been hearing of what happened in Uvalde, Texas. And you know, when things like that happen in our midst, and we have this feeling of hopelessness, helplessness, like how the fuck are we going to do anything about this? Everybody feels helpless, you know. And when I think about the music business, and you know, how we might be able to help in our own small way in the world of music, and I just wonder if because you bring heart to everything you do each day with music, you know, how do you see music being able to help in situations like this, you know?
Yeah, it's a tough question, you know. The way that I think it can help likely is like the coach for the basketball team the other day, who refused to talk about the game and refused to talk about what was going on, and made a very heartfelt statement of, you know, things got to change. And I think that musicians have that voice, and you know, I think they should be using it. I know that you know, there's a march happening down in Washington this weekend, and there's places to donate. And I know that because some of the artists that I follow on Instagram and whatnot are talking about it. And I think that's one place that as musicians, you know, you can start, you can talk about it, you can, you know, bring your fans into this, and you know, make them aware of it, and not just today, you know, because this happened 10 years ago, and this happened last week in Buffalo, and like, it's crazy. and it is an awareness thing that really they have to. And I'd love to see some more songs about this kind of thing. You know, the one that's coming to mind is Ohio, Passion Young. You know, when all that went down. I don't know if there's ever been. There probably is, and I'm just not thinking of it. You know, such a song like that really brought light to the injustice of that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, songs have changed societies. Songs have impacted sea changes in countries around the world too. Victor Hara, you know, and
well, look at you know, even was the Clash let that Ukrainian band use the song. You know,
so power of a good song.
Power of a good song, you know, absolutely. And you know, just hopefully people can get out and talk about this and really make change, because it's far too long in coming.
Jodie, it's been an absolute thrill to spend some time with you. And I have to thank Tom Truitt for bringing us together for this. It was very cool to see so many friends and colleagues in the chat too.
Yeah, sorry we couldn't get to everybody's things.
I think we did.
It's crazy.
Pretty much, we kind of did. Tom, anything you want to add to this before we wrap it up? Go ahead.
Go ahead, finish up. I'll clean up behind you.
Yeah, no, I'm off to catch a plane. I'm actually headed to Los Angeles right now, so I'm running to the airport.
Well, fly safe, pal, and we'll talk to you when you get in. We have a couple of things to discuss when we get home.
Very good. Love you, Joe.
Let me thank you. Let me thank you both real quick on behalf of the audience. You guys are incredible, and you're inspiring. You've turned us on to so much music. Please keep doing it. Chris, live forever, man. And Jodie, it's a pleasure. Thank you to Jaybird Communications for pulling this together. Lori Jacobson is a 5-star rock star.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lori.
To the audience, please be nice to each other and vote your ass off in November. We'll see you out there soon, folks. Take care.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.